Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Alyson Silverman of the Silverman Group at Keller Williams, serving Los Angeles and Ventura County in California. I want to tell you a little bit about Alyson. Over the course of her real estate career, she has consistently been awarded for her sales production. She credits her success to her focus on continuous improvement, negotiating skills, and commitment to provide her buyers and sellers with the information and tools they need to make sound decisions. To match her services and the needs of her clients, Alyson has continually worked to further her education. And just to let you know, Alyson has so many different certifications, but the one we're going to be focusing on today is really her certification and her experience in the distressed property part of real estate. So with that, Alyson, let's go ahead and get directly more into the interview. Tell me, for example, how many years have you been in the real estate business and been focusing on the default real estate industry?
I got my license, I believe, early 2006, and quickly, I believe, 2008, I believe I got my first REO assignment, foreclosure assignment, and then I started getting more accounts and just started happening. So, yeah.
So 2006, you got your real estate license. 2 years later, which obviously was the start of the whatever happened with real estate, the last downturn in real estate. So it was almost like you had the baptism by fire because you had to learn that business. So you started in real estate. What attracted you to the default real estate industry?
You know, I just knew that it was going to be big. I didn't know how big. And I knew I better get in it. And I know a lot of people, and I'm like, someone I know has to know someone in foreclosures. And sure enough, I found a friend from college, got my first assignment through him, and just it started happening from there.
So you said you got an assignment. Can you talk a little bit about how is the default real estate industry different from, say, general real estate?
Oh, so different. You get the assignment at the point of foreclosure usually. So at that point, your job as a realtor is to go to the door and find out if it's occupied and if it's occupied by the former borrower or a tenant. And usually these people are not happy to see you. So I never went in a suit because it's, a little intimidating. I always went, in jeans or sweatpants and apologize. I'm sorry to meet you under these circumstances. So it's our job as a foreclosure agent to do the eviction or the cash for keys or whatever, and take it. If we have to go to eviction court, and get the squatters out. We're the eyes and ears of the banks or the servicers that are usually out of state. So then we have to get contractors in there. We usually have to get the bids for the work. Some companies do their own bids, have their own property preservation companies. Most companies don't. Some of it we have to front. Some companies have us put the utilities on our name. And then if you don't correctly submit for the reimbursements, you don't get paid. So it's very task oriented. So most of the platforms go from green to orange to red. Red's bad. It affects your score as a realtor.
So in other words, you're rated as
Usually.
green, orange, or red realtor for the default industry. So you're in California, Los Angeles, and Ventura counties. So obviously that's a huge population area. What are you seeing? You said that you were really got into it in 2008 and in the last real estate downturn. What are you seeing happening now in 2021? I know there's a lot of things that are not happening, but what does it look like in the real estate world right now?
Well, I think in most areas, the inventory is very low, which makes it a seller's market. Also, we have 82-year low interest rates. So it's almost free money. And it's definitely a seller's market. So whenever something comes on the market, it's a feeding frenzy. And so that's what we're seeing in most states. There are really foreclosures aren't really happening because of the moratoriums. And I saw an email from my broker from yesterday that said California is proposing an extension until September. So there are a lot of people that aren't paying their mortgage right now because they can't, because right now in California, in Los Angeles and Ventura County, we're on pretty much mostly lockdown, stay-at-home order, and a lot of the restaurants are closed. Some are rebelling and opening, but most of the restaurants are closed. So a lot of people are being affected by this. So some mortgages aren't being paid.
So right now, it looks like in California there'll be a moratorium, so people won't be evicted until later in at least September of 2021. And by then, I imagine they'll have different systems in place to try to help people. Do you think that
it's in place until February right now, the end of February? So it's going to be extended. February. It's proposed, yeah.
So do you think that, what are the differences between now and what's happening now compared to what happened in 2007, 2008?
Well, hopefully we don't have any appraisers being paid under the table to increase the property's value. We don't have predatory lending like we did. In fact, lenders are much tighter. Now it's harder to get a loan. They're stricter. They're looking at the industry that you're in to make sure you're not affected by COVID and won't be, for the near future. A lot of that was predatory lending. So it's, this is sad. I mean, it was sad back then, but this is sad as well, that people are not being able to, they want to work. I believe so.
So what you're seeing in 2008 or so, it was a lot more, like you said, the predatory lenders, and it was due to all of that compared to now, where obviously we're 1 year into a worldwide pandemic, which is a whole different scenario. So I'm thinking 2006, this is 2029. So you've been in business a while.
Yes.
You probably paid your dues. So as a realtor now, how would you say you and your team and your company is different than your competition?
My team is different because our hearts are in it. And we put that person and their circumstances before our commission. And I don't see that a lot when I'm in escrow with other agents. I mean, some do, but my office is very collaborative, and, we do a lot of things for the community, and it's just amazing synergy in my office. That's why I've stayed there so long. It's my third office. So that's what I see the difference is.
So you feel like you are really for the people and put your heart and soul into it. So you're thinking about them, like you said, you're not just thinking about, oh, I'm going to get my commission. It sounds like people in the default real estate industry, they have to be a little more heart-centered, because how long would you say it takes once a house is got a foreclosure until you actually might get paid?
That's a great question. I've had several take over 2 years. I had one 4 years. You know, yeah, I think there was maybe a handful that I did that I got that were vacant, and we put them on the market right away, and I got paid, 30, 60 days. You know, there's a lot of stuff that has to go on, the pre-marketing, all sorts of other stuff that goes on first. And the ones that went on for a long time, the former borrower was fighting and filing bankruptcy again, or had an attorney and, working things out, with the bank's attorney. So that's not uncommon.
So you get hired by a bank or a company that's managing a foreclosed property. So you're not necessarily working with an owner of a property, or would you?
No. Well, a lot of times the former borrower is in there, and I negotiate the eviction or the cash for keys or the sheriff lockout or something. And I show up for the sheriff lockout, which has gone awry a couple times. But yeah, there was one, I saw that you had asked for stories. There was one, and I get there and she had dementia. It was in a senior home, and she was obviously older, and she showed me a picture of her in her 20s, and she goes, "Look, that wasn't that long ago." And I walked in, her 65-year-old son was a paranoid schizophrenic. And she goes, "That's my husband there dying in that chair." There was a lounge chair, and this man was sprawled out in this lounge chair, and he was not, you couldn't talk to him. I don't know if he was asleep. And so, and they had a ton of antiques, and she would invite me in and ask me if I wanted some Kool-Aid and can I make you some eggs? And she'd say, "I love you." It was so heartbreaking. So what we did, this one took a while. I called up the asset manager, because that's a person on the other end at the bank, and we have to sleep well too. So we got them a little extra money. We got them a little extra time. I think we got a 90-day waiver, and we got her conserved through the county of Ventura. And they had to come in and catalog all their antiques, because they had moved from Beverly Hills into this small place. They had to take care of her dog and get it, find it a home. And the husband did end up passing away in the hospital. And we put her in a memory facility, and it took a while because we had to put the son, in a facility next door. We had to find, for paranoid schizophrenics. So we got the county found them adjacent homes, and I felt really good about that one. I'm glad it was my assignment, not somebody else. So that one took a long time to get paid, but it was heartbreaking to see, and she had no idea what was going on. So
in that particular case, because you have a dying husband, a paranoid schizophrenic son, and then you have dementia. So that woman was, thank God it was you.
Yes. Yeah. I was glad it was me.
Somebody they needed help, like you said, to get a conservator in there to help, just so that they could get the help they need. And yes. I'm sure that dying in a hospital, while it's not ideal, it had to have been better to die in a hospital than to be
in the chair.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that is something that you really should be thankful for. And I
Yes.
don't think people understand the human side of, how do people get into these circumstances? But of course, now as we look at this worldwide pandemic, and a lot of these things are, it's nobody's fault that,
Well, let me tell you how she told me her story. She was old fashioned, and her husband paid all the bills. She had never written a check in her life. So they had the money somewhere. I don't know where, I didn't touch their or go through their finances. But, once her husband became ill, she didn't know how to pay the bills. And they had even contacted them, and there was a form to work it out with the bank right there on the table, and she didn't know how to fill it out. So, because she had dementia. And so, you have to understand the circumstance to help them get through it. And I've had several of the former borrowers thank me and cry at the end and give me hugs and say, thank you for helping me through this. This was, this could have been a lot worse if it wasn't you.
Wow. So you obviously you're in California, and again, high population area. In the default industry, are there certain niches that you seem to be an expert at in terms of types of properties that you're working on for asset managers?
I love the high-end ones. I like what are they? The reverse mortgage. The reverse mortgage are usually vacant. They need some work. They need to be trashed out. The high-end ones are super fun. I just had one go in Agora. It was like 24 offers, $200,000 over asking. It was a major fixer in a gated community. It was a lot of fun to work on that one.
So are you seeing a lot of people offering way over the asking price for properties right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a real estate meme going around saying, we got asking price. We got an offer at asking price. How insulting. That it's so low. Yeah, when I was looking, I had a veteran last year and a veteran couple. They were so sweet to work with. And there was a couple of houses that went 100, 150,000 over, and here we were with our 10% down, in their VA loan. So, but I finally got them a house, and that was super fun. First time home buyers.
So first time home buyers, you said something that perked my ear up, and you talked about reverse mortgages. How are reverse mortgages different than a traditional mortgage, especially in a default space?
Well, for reverse mortgage, you start off with equity, and then the bank is paying you equity. You get a payment. So unless you're really savvy, I wouldn't recommend it. So normally in the default space, they're normally vacant and been abandoned, or someone has passed away usually. So other than that, it's no different.
Oh, so the person, typically the reason they're vacant is because the person who had the reverse mortgage is the one who passed away.
Mm-hmm. Or went into a home. There was one I had that had gone, I think she had some sort of dementia or Alzheimer's, and her family relocated her into another home and just picked her up and didn't move any of her stuff.
So why wouldn't the family take it over or something, or can't they? I don't know anything about reverse mortgages, so I would think
I believe they have 6 months after the death to transfer it. And it just depends on, the way the person has set up their estate, whether or not the family has control to do so or not. So if you die intestate, you can't, there's not much that the family can do.
If somebody dies without a will, then they don't have, it basically would just go into the whatever. And California laws are probably different than the laws are in other parts of the country too. So
Possibly.
that would definitely be a question to ask somebody in wherever your properties are located. So you have tons of education. I mean, I could have read off a list of probably 20 different certifications. How important do you think it is to get all of this real estate education, and how does it benefit your potential clients?
I think you should always be sharpening your saw. You should always be one step ahead of your competition. You should always be learning the newest technology when it applies. It definitely benefits my clients because I'm on top of my game. I don't want to leave a stone unturned. So, and I have a business marketing degree, so which is used basically every day. And social media changes all the time. You have to stay on top of that. I believe that right now I have almost 19,000 on LinkedIn, so that helps my clients when I, market their homes. I think you just always need to stay on top of it.
It's interesting because you mentioned that some of these houses go really rapidly, and you said one took more than 4 years. What is the fastest sale that you've had?
I mean, an all cash sale could be 15 days. So there's still, no matter what it is that, if it's a regular standard sale, you still have to prep the house. You have to stage it. You have to take the photos before you hit the MLS. So it's still, about at least a week to 3 weeks to prep before you hit the MLS. It takes a week to, capture the multiple offers and answer them, and then open escrow. So
with these default homes that are in foreclosure, are most of these foreclosures or any of them short sales, or a short sale before that happens? I guess what my real question is, when I'm trying to get to, is if you want to buy a house that is in a defaulted state, can you get a new mortgage, or does it have to have cash? Can you get an FHA on one? What do you as a buyer have to have in place in order to benefit from buying one of these homes?
That's a great question. So, well, first of all, short sales are not short. They're very long because the bank has to approve the sale. And a lot of times there's a lot of red tape. So it depends on the property that you're looking at. So let's say it's already foreclosed on and it hit the market. So it depends on the condition of the house. So if there's foundational issues, or if there's a hole in the roof and it's full of mold, you're not going to be able to go FHA. You're going to have to go all cash. So if it's in really good shape, and some of them are, and some of the banks do rehabs before we hit the market, then you can do FHA. Usually if it's a condo or townhome, you can do a spot approval on FHA, I believe. VA is a little harder to go on a foreclosure because they have stricter requirements. But again, like I said, it depends on the condition. A lot of my foreclosures are cash only. So, but some of them aren't.
So really, if you're interested in a default industry type home, a foreclosure, you should just look and find out what the requirements are for each individual property, and then go from there. You said something, a spot inspection.
Spot approval.
Yeah.
So let's say there's on FHA, they made a new, I think it was last year. It used to be that the whole complex had to be approved by FHA, and it's very expensive if it expired to get it reapproved. And in order to do a reverse mortgage, a condo or townhome has to be FHA approved as well. So now FHA made it so that let's say the complex has 100 condos or townhomes in it. Now, when you go to buy the condo or townhome that's in an expired FHA complex, they usually can do a spot approval on that one home if the complex meets the requirements. So if it's 90% tenants, it's probably not going to meet the requirements. If they haven't done all of if their HOA is not fully funded and they don't have a reserve study, they're probably not going to meet the FHA requirements. If there's a lawsuit pending against them, they're probably not going to get FHA. So it's really very important that your realtor knows all this stuff if you're going FHA, and knows their loan products and what, works with a good lender. You need to have a good lender as well. And the second you go to buy a property, if you're not all cash, you need to get pre-approved. So on most of my properties right now, because of COVID, I will not only require the COVID waiver, but I will require either a proof of funds for the all cash within the last 30 days or a pre-approval to get inside the house to view it.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So in other words, you're saying if I want to go buy a defaulted property, I need to go and get pre-approved, and then also make sure that my real estate professional is up on everything in the area that I want to buy in, and have a good lender in place so that it would be easy.
Absolutely, because once it hits market, it goes so quick. You don't have time to be, getting your paperwork to the lender. You have to be ready to go. And on any property, whether it's distressed or a standard sale, things go so quickly right now that you have to, once they hit market, that you have to be ready to go.
Wow. So I guess it's called be prepared.
Be very prepared. Yes. Do your homework.
So you told me the one story about the woman with dementia, and you mentioned about sometimes sheriff lockouts don't go as well as they might. Do you have any other stories you might want to share with us?
I had one where it was vacant. We were in escrow, and a couple moved in with a pit bull. And the neighbor called me and said, "Did you sell it?" And I said, "Well, it's in escrow." And he said, "Well, there's people living there." So called 911, waited there. And I don't know, someone gave them the key out of the combo or something. And I said, "No, these are not the buyers." And so they were about ready to take the dog over to the pound, that's sad. But I guess they finally called a family member to pick up the dog. They got arrested. They had my air conditioning. Remember, my utilities, I'm paying the utilities. They had the air conditioning going 24/7, full blast. This is in the heat of summer in the valley. So, and I just remember staying in the garage of the neighbor who had called me to, thanking him and hiding from them so they didn't see my face, while the cops went in there. So, yeah, it's, I put it all over social media and everyone was like, "Oh." So he goes, "Do you want them arrested?" I said, "Yes, they broke the law."
How long were they there?
I think he said they got there the night before.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't they were there for 30 days running.
No, and AC. We were in escrow, and I normally introduce myself to the neighbors. Right when I get the assignment, give them my card, tell me if you see anything weird, because they don't want anything weird next door, and so I got in, and they had a party. There were red vines and vodka, and they were living it up in there. No furniture, but it was really weird.
So they just saw an opportunity and they took it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had a couple like that. So yeah, you have to have pictures of the house vacant. You also have to have notices all over, no trespassing notices, or the cops won't help you. So I've made big, like 2x3, no trespassing notices with the civil code on them.
Oh, interesting. I've seen those in houses when I'm driving, and I'll go, why do they have a big giant sign in their window? Because I live in Florida and we have a lot of people who are seasonal, and so they come and go. So, a lot of times, places you can tell that nobody's there, but I did notice a couple of houses like that where they have the big signs.
Normally when you call 911, you have to show the cops pictures that you did have the signs posted.
Oh, that's really interesting. And a little bit of insider information.
So things you don't find that you have to figure out on your own as a foreclosure broker. Things they don't tell you up front.
So, have you ever had, that one, of course, could have been dangerous because they could have sicked their dog on you. Have you had any that were just really, really dangerous or just so bizarre that it's like one of those stories that you wouldn't believe, but it's true, it's true?
Yeah, the one that I wrote in the chapter of the book.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, Allison has written a chapter in a new book that's coming out in the spring by a group of default industry leaders about her adventures as an REO broker. You can go ahead and share a little bit about that story as a teaser if you want.
I think one of the scariest parts is we went to do the first sheriff lockout and the sheriff hadn't arrived yet. And the driveway came downhill. And so I was waiting there. I could see the former owner leaving. And so I stood in front of the car and they almost tried to run me over to get me out of the way because I wanted to talk to them and tell them, they knew that the sheriff's coming because they get a notification, but I wanted them to take, 7 days of medication, 7 days of clothing and toothbrushes and any valuables, because there's a chance, most likely, that they're not going to get back in for another 7 days because they have to make an appointment with me to come get their stuff during bank hours. And so I like to, have an open communication, and they didn't want to talk. They kept revving their car in front of me. Sheriff came after they left. And then we had to do a second sheriff lockout. It's really a fun story. But that time we had, I think it was 9 sheriffs, and they actually pulled their guns out at one point. So it's, a little teaser about the chapter.
Well, it is a fun chapter, and the everyone across the country who is in the default industry business in real estate, they really do have some pretty phenomenal stories. So, and yours, of course, is just one of them about the things that happen when you're in the real estate business. And like you said, there's a lot of very heart-rendering things that REO agents, REO stands for real estate owned, meaning the bank owns the real estate. And then, of course, like you said, sometimes you have to ask people to leave, and it might be their home, or maybe they have renters or other tenants in the house. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about you on a personal level. So tell me a little bit about what do you do in your spare time that you find enjoyable, or do you work 24/7?
I used to. Now on Mondays, we do a team huddle every morning. And Monday, my assistant, her job is to ask us what day or days we're taking off. So we do take days off. I normally shut it down around 5. Sometimes if it's a multiple offer situation, I'll work late for, that one property at a time. I get up at 5 a.m. So I go to bed early. So I tell my clients, it's no good me writing a contract at 9 o'clock when I'm crashing. You want me to be alert.
Right.
Contracts are very important. There's once in a while an exception. This weekend, I'm going to the beach with my nieces for their birthday. I love walking my dog. When there's no COVID, I like the dog park. I like hiking, gardening. I like getting outdoors. Spending time with friends, going to restaurants when they're open. Moving. Just getting around.
Well, I imagine because you live in California and they have a really heavy duty lockdown right now during COVID, right?
Yes.
So yes. I live in Florida where our governor has everything open. So it's very opposite. However, yes. Both states have high levels of COVID. So, I don't know the right or wrong.
I'm jealous. Well, I heard it's not being spread from the restaurants, so I don't know.
Probably not where I live in a very low population.
Okay.
Area. So in our area, I doubt that there's that much being spread in that way. But if you lived in a higher population where maybe they're, partying or something, but I live in a very low key.
Well, but all the restaurants did, the 6 feet apart tables and, outdoors and, they sanitize. And so I feel bad for the restaurant owners.
Yeah, our whole world is kind of tipsy-turvy right now. That's for sure. So you've been in real estate now since 2006. What would you say is the most satisfying part of being in real estate or being a leader in the default industry?
In real estate in general, I have a first-time home buyer that I got into a condo, and a year later, maybe it was a little over a year later, they invited me to their baby shower. And I said, "Oh, aren't you the cutest little pregnant girl, little belly and, adorable glow." And she looks at me and she almost started crying. And she said, "Allison, if you hadn't gotten us into this home, we never would have been able to start a family." And that was one of the most meaningful moments in my career. I used to do more first-time home buyers. Now we're moving more into the over $1 million price range. And that was a standard sale. However, my heart still loves, it's almost better than the commission is giving a first-time home buyer their key. It actually is. If I was a multi-million-dollar, trust fund baby, I would probably still work with first-time home buyers. Because it just lights me up. I love helping someone stage their property, give them a consultation. I love the one-on-one spending time with the people, the clients. I love being able to tell them that we got, so much more over asking. That's wonderful to be able to do that right now. I just love helping families. And even, in foreclosures, I still get to help people.
Well, especially if some of these people, they need help to navigate out of the home, like you said. And you mentioned cash for keys. What exactly is cash for keys?
Sometimes some of the banks offer a certain amount of money to relocate the person, the former borrower. Sometimes the borrower takes it, sometimes they refuse and they've got an attorney, and that's when it goes long. So it depends. When they refuse, sometimes it can. That's when the sheriff lockout happens after I go to eviction court with the attorney for the bank. So yeah, there's been a couple really sad stories in the default arena where there were deaths involved, and for the family, and those are the really sad ones. It wasn't anything foreseeable. So those are the ones. I'm glad it was me. Those are the ones where they did hug me and say they were thankful that I was there. So, I had some heartbreaking stories.
Well, I think because, especially in the United States, owning real estate is a big part of what they call the American dream. And so, like you say, there would be a lot of heartbreak in it when you lose something that you worked so hard to get. And then, of course, if there's other life happenings that happen with it also. So
yeah, I don't care who you are. You get attached to your house. There's always emotion, when it comes to buying or selling a house.
I drive by one of my houses that I sold during the 2008. I didn't want to sell it, but I needed to sell it. And I drive by it and it makes me, I have a little pang.
Right. Yeah.
Because, we had a life there. And
memories are built there. You probably put in some blood, sweat, and tears into the, and remodeled it a little bit.
So I know what that's like. So do you, we talked a little bit about it in the beginning of the interview about the fact that there's a moratorium on, I guess, evictions right now until February of this year, and that it may go beyond that. Do you think that in 2022, 2023, that we'll see more defaults happening? Or is that something that's too soon to tell?
I think we will. The first evictions are going to be the pre-COVID evictions, the non-COVID related evictions that are piling up. Those are going to have to happen. And then sadly, the people that couldn't make their house payment because of COVID, if they can't work it out with the banks. So you still have regular people that couldn't make their house payment before COVID started. So
those would just be things that were pending last year that because of timing got put on hold.
Right. So those, I think there's some class action suits against the government for not letting those evictions happen. There's some sad stories I've heard.
Wow. Yeah, it's so hard to know now because everything has been up in the air for so long with relief and everything that, I imagine that 2021 will be the year where things kind of get aired out.
Or sorted out. I hope so, for everyone's sake.
But even, it might be longer than that. I mean, what gets me about time is it just, a year went by, we literally were locked down. We've been
about a year ago. Yeah.
For a year. And a lot of people are still, like you said, where you're at, you're still in lockdown, severe, what I would consider severe level of lockdown. So right now, what's the best way if somebody would like to talk to you about maybe they have questions or they'd like to work with you, what's the best way to contact you?
Probably via email or my cell phone.
You want to go ahead and give us that?
Sure. Allison at AlysonSilverman.com. That's ALYSON at ALYSONSILVERMAN.com. Probably that way is the best.
Okay, Allison at AlysonSilverman.com. And I wanted to just ask you one last question. What would you say? Actually, it's two questions.
Okay, okay.
For somebody wanting to sell their property right now, it sounds like now's the time to sell, but for somebody, maybe there's somebody out there that's pivoting. Do you have any advice for people who might want to get into being a real estate professional now? What would your advice be to somebody who wants to sell their property? That's one question. And then my last question is, what's your advice for a potential, let's say it's a real estate person who just getting their license, or maybe they want to pivot into the default industry? What's your advice?
Okay, so for a seller, give me a call and I'll do a consultation and we'll weigh out the pros and cons. And for a real estate professional, I have a friend's daughter-in-law who's been trying to take her exam, her real estate exam, and it keeps getting postponed because of COVID. So I don't know what to say about that because that's completely out of everyone's control. I love Keller Williams. I think that if you're trying to get your license, that Keller Williams has amazing training. And we have my office has the most amazing support staff. So I can help you if you're looking to get into real estate. I would love to help you. To get into default, I don't think now is the time. Someone just asked me that on LinkedIn. And I think right now the asset managers don't have a lot of assets, like, barely any. And my thinking is that they're trying to keep their jobs. And maybe they might be shifting around. I think the asset managers might be having a tough time in their industry right now with not enough volume. So I don't know if now's, with the shrunken inventory, if now anyone's open to hiring a new realtor at this point. That's just my gut feeling, and I could be wrong. I could be right. So
right now, like this split second, if you're going to do real estate, you would be doing more traditional
and standard. Yes. So someone asked me if, I could refer him some asset managers. And I said, I don't think that an asset manager who's revving up their resume and, trying to keep their job is interested in me introducing them to someone I've never met.
Right.
I don't.
It might be if you wanted to get into real estate as a regular realtor and then watch the trends,
Right.
What happens.
There is a real ugly side to REO. So you have to be really prepared. We do a lot of people, when they hear what I do as an REO agent, realtors, they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do a sheriff lockout. I don't want to put the utilities in my name. I'm not going to go to eviction court. You mean I have to evict the person? So it's a whole different skill set that a lot of agents don't want to learn. It's also very, very competitive. Multiply regular real estate, by 1,500. So I remember back in the day, those poor asset managers went to the bathroom and people would follow them in and slip their resume underneath the stall. And, it was just shameful behavior. They would get attacked by realtors and
Wow.
Embarrassing. Yeah. So I don't know if now would be a sensitive time to say, hey, are you hiring?
Well, that's good to know because, again, like I said, there are many people who may or may not, they're trying to pivot their businesses And I don't know about California, but in Florida, a lot of people have their real estate license.
Yeah.
One of them. And the only reason I have a real estate license today, because I got it in 1986 and I let it go once. And then I wanted it back because I did real estate again in, I think, 2005 or 6. And I had to get my license again after letting it go. And that was a lot more work.
Right.
I had to do a lot more than I did in 1996 to get the license. And so now I just keep it active just because I don't want to ever let it go and then find out, oh, I wish I had it.
Right. And go through that. I will say,
A lot of work.
My good friend, Brandy Nelson, that you know, we talked about that because we get asked that a lot because we're both the director of REO at our company. And she pointed out that you have to be BPO certified, broker price opinion certified. Most realtors do not want to do a BPO, much less learn how to, because it's basically an appraisal with not as much weight as an appraisal. So it's very intricate, very detailed. You have to know where the market's going. You have to really be on top of your comps and adjustments. So if you don't want to do BPOs and get BPO certified, this is not the niche for you.
So it's something that if you're interested in, you really have to look at it.
Do your homework, know what you have to understand and know.
Right.
And, maybe pick the brain of an REO agent to see exactly what it takes, what a day in the life of an REO agent is, and see if that's really something you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Well,
sometimes it's not that glamorous.
I'm hearing that. It does not, it sounds like you said there's a lot of work
Yes.
to do. It isn't like, oh yeah, you write up a contract or you go give your presentation and smile. And there's a lot of work involved and a lot of work that's not pleasant because you're with humans at
one sheriff lockout. I get there and I had met the homeowner several times, and she said, I'm not going anywhere. And I said, okay, we'll get used to me because I have to do weekly property checks. Was it another thing? Some companies make you do weekly property checks. So I said, okay, I'll see you next week. And so we got used to each other, and she tolerated me. There was no bad, so we had a sheriff lockout and she wasn't home. And I get there, the sheriff says, her dog's here. And I said, okay, so what do I do? And he goes, well, if animal control comes and takes the dog and puts it down, you're liable for that. And I said, oh, it was a little tiny dog. So I took it home and I gave her a call and she goes, how did you get my number? And I said, on your dog's collar. And I said, I'm guessing you want your dog back. So the dog spent the night with me and my animals. So there's little things like that no one tells you about.
Well, thank goodness that the police officer kind of put the
told me
that you would be liable because again, these are like behind the scenes stories, that people don't know. So wow, so you've given us some really good insight on both sides of the REO default industry because you shared about what it's like to the processes of that REO for a homeowner and asset manager, and then of course the nitty gritty of what it's like to actually do the work. Because again, it sounds like, and I'm just listening. Going, I don't want to work that hard. and of course, the emotions. To me, I think, like you said, you have to be somebody who really does care because you have to be very empathetic to, what's going on, just like the lady with her little dog. For many people that would be the equivalent to their child.
Exactly.
And thank goodness, you called her and at least put that part of
what the bank does not want is to end up in the news. And they definitely don't want to end up in the news because of their realtor that they hired. So everything you do is under a magnifying glass. So you definitely have to really be very careful about how that former borrower, how your interaction goes with them. So, a lot of times they're upset, and my job is just to diffuse them. No matter what they're yelling or saying, I can't argue back.
So you're a real estate professional. REO agent is actually the face of the bank and of the company, and has to try to, like you said, diffuse it. Wow. Well, so I think we've learned a lot from you, Allison. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I let you go?
No, I'm really grateful to have this interview. I'm grateful to be in the industry that I'm in, and thank you for your time and having me.
Well, thank you, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.